Okay. Recording. Hello, everyone.
Wow, that's a lot.
Everyone.
A lot of names just popping up there.
Can you all hear us okay?
Cool. Yeah, Kelly's got a thumbs up.
Oh, great. Thanks, Kelly.
Oh, okay, there's still a few more people coming in.
That's a flurry of activity.
This is where you need like the elevator music.
Yeah, the hold music.
Yeah.
Hold your call's really important to us.
Yeah. We'll just give it another minute or two just to see if anyone else joins.
Cool. Sounds good. Hope everyone's somewhere cool today. Maybe in some nice aircon.
Everyone's sat in front of fans.
Yeah.
Mm.
Hello. Hi, Brainy.
Hey, Brian.
Hello.
There's still a couple of more people coming in.
No worries. A lot of people with their cameras off, guys. Yeah. All right, it's okay. It's not an internal team meeting, but just saying.
Hi, everyone. There's still just a couple more people joining, so we're just letting people in.
I'm going to sound so British now, but it is so hot. Oh my God. I just
What we
cannot.
talk about now.
Literally. I feel like you can't join a call now without somehow referencing the weather.
Yeah. If anyone's in aircon, I'm just so jealous. I'm having all the doors and all the windows open in my East London flat.
Yeah, I know. I did a call yesterday for about an hour and a half without my fan directly on my face, and by the end of it, it was just disaster.
Apparently the new thing is putting ice cubes on fans, and it's like a makeshift aircon.
I know, but it's really hard to do. You actually tried to do it?
I've not tried it yet.
Because you got to position it like really well for it to actually work, and it's I tried it, believe me, it's quite hard.
Oh.
Right, okay, so I think we'll get started and I'll just keep admitting people in as they're coming in. So hi everyone. I think I've probably met quite a few of you, but I'm Lorna, the Senior Customer Success Manager at Airship. But then we've got Faye and Ed from Bums and Seats who are going to be leading this. So they're going to be talking about how you can best use tech running up to Christmas. So I will take over for them. Go on then, guys.
Thanks very much, Lorna. Faye is going to bring up the deck that we're going to take you through. But yes, I'm Ed. And I know a couple of you guys, I think, on here as well. Good to see you all. Good to see you all here. So cool.
Let's change that.
Yeah. Perfect. Cool. So welcome to obviously the flight plan with Airship with Bums on the Seats. So what we're going to take you through is using tech to drive Christmas sales in particular.
Yeah.
So just a little bit about us. Some of you may know us. Some of you may not be 100% sure on what exactly we do as a business. So Bums on Seats are a sales and marketing. We're sales and marketing experts in the hospitality and leisure part of the industry. So it was founded in 2019, and what we essentially do, so with most of our time trading has been spent during obviously with COVID being around, but we've been able to pivot, and essentially what we focus on is being able to drive sales for your businesses. So, and we do that in a couple of ways. So what we tend to do first is we identify. So we will look at to find what sales opportunities there are, and one part of that may be looking at the tech. and looking at that, everything from a booking system to your CRM, or and looking to make sure how are you utilizing that, and what's the data behind that saying in terms of your trends, in terms of your conversions, etc. We'll then look at other aspects such as the process and customer journey, sales, toolkit, and then also marketing as well. So we do that, we'll cover that, give you a whole big deck, and then we'll look at that and go, what are the opportunities in there from an earning potential perspective, and what can we do next? And that formulates our create aspect, which is then sales and marketing plans. We can look at that from a seasonal aspect over, could be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12, depending on what the key focuses of your business and what's been identified in the previous stage, which then rolls into how we then deliver that for you guys. So that will be all through consultancy, whether it be top line and more senior consultancy, or whether it's more for your more further down. Cool. And then we'll also cover bits like training as well for some of our for some team members as well, if we think if we agree that that's the best way forward. So just a couple of examples of some of the clients that we've worked with in the last sort of 12 months or 6 months or so, everything from your Pot Shacks to your Yo Sushis and Revolution bars, and to also likes of Green King and New World Trading and Beds and Bars. So lots of different types of clients that we've worked with from across the industry. So as already mentioned, I'm Ed, and obviously we've got Faye joining me as well. So I thought it was only fitting that I did a Christmas webinar with a surname like mine. I will personally buy a drink if you can come up with a Christmas joke I've not heard of. But yes, so I thought it was appropriate that I deliver a Christmas workshop. So I'm the Tech and Partnerships Director. My background's been hospitality since I was legally allowed to work in hospitality, working across sort of operations and sales, and then before moving to the Access Group, working for Design by Night, and then moving over to Bums on Seats about 2 years ago. And then I'll let Faye do a little bit about her.
Hi everyone, so I am Faye, Associate Marketing Director at Bums. I've been with Bums on Seats since the beginning of the year, and my background has come from venue sales and marketing. So I started way back at Novus Leisure many years ago when the concept of pre-book business was sort of still fairly new, and worked through a sales and reservations role, and then I've spent the last 10 to 11 years working with a company called CG Restaurants and Bars, who have Dirty Martini chain of cocktail bars, where I was in a head of marketing role, essentially. So yeah, really excited to get started and see what we can go through.
Cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. So what we're going to look at today then, so we're going to look at obviously giving a little bit of context around Christmas. We're going to be looking at the opportunities and obviously the challenges that we're all know and aware of, but it's actually then how do you change those challenges for the hospitality industry, and actually how do we change the mindset to make it look actually this is opportunity for us as an industry. We'll look at some of that, and that ties quite nicely into some of the work we've done with other platforms and some other platforms in their research. So we're going to look at what's the, what are our partners saying within the industry from a tech perspective, and what stats are they finding, to give it a little bit more context to why tech is so important, especially now in the run up to, for obviously changing consumer behavior, but also running up to Christmas. And then from that, we'll look at a whole model around tech and a load of touch points that really need to be considered in the run up to Christmas. And then Faye will take you guys through everything from some top tips around emails and automations and utilizing your CRM, before we dive into a bit of a checklist that I've got and I've created from a bookings platform point of view and a tech point of view, just things that you can kind of cross off as you're going, that you can hopefully use moving forward, and then looking into sort of 2023 and how can get ahead of the game. And hopefully all of that together will help drive Christmas sales.
Cool. So just a little bit of context. So Christmas is coming, which feels very odd when it is so bloody hot outside. But yeah, we've been talking about it for a few months now, as anyone who works in the hospitality industry probably is. But let's just have a look at what we've got coming up. So it's our first Christmas really with no, any sort of trading restrictions, which is obviously really, really exciting. There's also a huge World Cup tournament that's going to be kicking off in November, and that's going to run through, really key dates throughout the Christmas party season. We know there's been a lot of recent sort of doom and gloom, which we will talk a little bit about because it is important later on. But despite all that, we do still really see a massive opportunity for operators and hospitality this Christmas, and to make it really, really good. I think it's important to note that during COVID, it really feels like a lot of hospitality venues and groups took a big step forward in terms of their tech. So things like the arrival of order and pay, maybe launching online shops. So I think there was a lot of work that was done during that time, and also a strong focus on customer data, but probably because of everything going on and being really crazy and busy, have maybe not taken the time to kind of step back and make sure everything's set up properly. Are you fully utilizing your different data streams, and how are you using that to your benefit? So that's why we think it's important, more now than ever, that your tech and your systems are fully optimized, and how can you use that to kind of drive sales. And I think Christmas is the perfect example of a campaign that's coming up that you can do that for. So we'll talk a bit about how your system's talking to each other. Like I mentioned there before, you might have loads of different platforms, but how are they all linking in, and how are you kind of making the most of that data that's coming in your customer? And trying to build up that real kind of 360 rich view of what your customer looks like. What's the benefit of having all of that? How can you use that to your advantage with your sort of segmenting and personalization? And ultimately, how are we going to use that to drive more bookings and more bums on seats, which, we're going to keep getting that in there, guys, just so you know, bums on seats. We'll keep on back to that. So let's get started. So we're going to talk a bit about the opportunity. I mentioned already, just getting some context in here. So we do know there's a lot of challenges at the moment, and I think it would be, it would be irresponsible not to sort of talk about that. We know that there's a big recession sort of predicted for later on in the year. We're experiencing, a huge cost of living crisis, unlike anything, certainly any of us on this call have ever seen. From a, hospitality perspective, lots of things are impacting stuff like supply chains, rates continuously increasing. We are in the midst of a huge staffing crisis because of various reasons, and I know at the moment particularly that is a real big challenge for anyone really within hospitality. And then obviously added to that is the World Cup, not necessarily a negative challenge, but it could be a challenge nonetheless for your operation. How are you going to operate with something like Christmas and the World Cup side by side? Have you yet kind of worked out what your strategy is for that in terms of showing games and not showing games, or dealing with kind of large group bookings that maybe want to see the matches? So it's all just really big points to consider. Mind you, because of all that, and what we are seeing is that when customers are going out, it's less casual. It's definitely more about pre-booked occasions. So this ability to be able to kind of book the event or experience or just table in advance is really, really important. And the experience is everything. So really, if you are going to be going out and spending your money, you want it to be on something really good, and maybe something that is a bit more of an experience instead of just maybe just going out kind of drinks or dinner. And then finally, that kind of high value social spending is being replaced with hospitality spend. Again, going back to that point that people do want still the experience. We're still kind of coming out of COVID, where we spent such a long time not being able to really see people or do things. So I think people still want to get out there and have that experience. But yeah, they're just looking for something a little bit different. So our friends at Can Media, who we work really closely with, who obviously produce some really good insight and research, that just sort of back this up. So the experience spending grew 4 times faster than spend on physical goods in 2011. And a recent study showed that 2/3 of consumers want hospitality venues to deliver some sort of experience that they can't replicate at home. So I think that's just a valid point for when you're thinking about your Christmas campaign and strategy, like how are you putting your packages together? What have you got on offer? Have you got experiences or events sort of running through that Christmas period that will kind of appeal to this? And then finally, of course, delivering a successful Christmas booking in venue is always going to result in a loyal returning customer. And it's, you know, we say this every year, but obviously this year is going to be massive. It's a huge opportunity to just get your brand and your venue name out there, because you've got a lot of people coming in that maybe wouldn't normally come because they're coming through a Christmas party or, you know, for whatever reason. So more people coming through the doors, deliver a really good in-venue experience, and you're going to get a loyal customer in return. Just handing over to Ed.
Me. I think what a lot of these, there's a couple of, as I mentioned before, there's a couple of stats that we, you know, bring up, and hopefully some of them are really insightful for you to understand how to then use tech to enhance it. But I think what these stats that Can showed, and also then what these ones are going to be showing, just really painting this picture as to why it's really important to be focusing on Christmas now, and why the tech is really important. Because, for example, from from our friends at Feed It Back, from a recent report that they've done, 58% of people are less likely to visit a venue if it's inquiry only. So that means if people can't instant book, it's that whole bit of getting on a phone and be able to getting on your mobile to be able to quickly go on a website and book. It's a whole sort of one-stop shop solution. People want that. They don't want to be known to be inquiry only. They're less likely to book. And if your competitors are doing an instant book, they're going to go there instead rather than wait for a reply. If it's a big group, they're largely they could be inquiring for 5-6 different venues. So if one of them couldn't be instantly booked, they're going to go down that route instead. So it's making sure, it's this whole idea of having, we look at it as a business. If it's like if you've got like a leaking bucket, you can do all your sales and marketing tools around it, even proactive outreach to other parts of marketing campaigns. If your systems are not correct from a bookings platform and your CRM, for example, then it's going to be a leaking bucket. So you're not going to see the full return on all the investment and the hard work that everyone does. Sorry, Faye, go back. As well, 6 out of 10 guests are less likely to book where a deposit is required. There is this constant conversation that I'm having with a lot of clients, especially at the moment, and have done over the years, around deposits for Christmas and how that should be. My approach to it is totally dependent on the group size, day of the week, the type of Christmas occasion that it is, and what your platform can actually deliver. So whether it can do deposits, whether it can do authentications and authorizations, and that's how I would deem it. And what we want to do is, where possible, still reduce the bookings barrier, and that's what those 2 stats that we've just gone through kind of really telling us. And the one in the middle, with 35% of guests at eating and drinking 2 or 3 times out a month, that relates back to the CAM slide as well, which looks at, customers are really wanting an experience now, and obviously they're going out less, they want an experience. And as we've seen, we've highlighted, they are going out less frequently, but they are spending more. So it's about how do we get the most out of them there whilst they're there. And a couple of other stats just to really sort of drive home how important it is to really start thinking about all this, is people are looking at things like social media a hell of a lot more, with nearly 60% of sort of that Gen Z or kind of late millennials. They are really honing in on social media. They're really looking at, with another report by Reputation also showed that 50% are looking at TripAdvisor still. So it's looking at making sure that all your social media and TripAdvisor, all those reviews are really up to date, making sure that you've got a platform in place that actually you can do that, and so that you're not having to double up on work, and you're having someone that's accountable for it. And having a tech behind that will really just ensure more productivity and efficiency. And that's incredibly important, especially at the moment with, as we say, with Christmas. And these stats are actually recently pulled from Design My Night, that I've seen on their website alone, that this was towards the 3rd week of July, which was, funny enough, the stats were pulled when it was the 2 hottest days of the year. They were seeing an uplift like this of fondue by nearly 200%, New Year's Eve by 120%, and December by nearly 200 as well. And they were on the hottest days of the year. People are still looking up fondue. So I think it just shows that there is an absolute demand for it. People are wanting to. So actually, if people are already looking it up, you need to make sure it's incredibly easy to book, incredibly slick way on your website in order for that to happen. And going back to those obviously previous stats, making sure there is as minimal booking barriers as possible, because otherwise your competitors will do it instead. a bit of other uplifting news as well. So CGA Trading Index also released a report saying that actually eating and drinking is still a top priority for the general public, and it's more important than going abroad and going away in the UK. So hopefully that stays on that trajectory and that trend.
Yeah, it'll be good.
So therefore, with that in mind, how can it help? What can we do to really capitalize on clearly this interest in Christmas and this interest in and this change in consumer behavior? And when looking at the consumers and their approach to technology and understanding why therefore it's so important, 50% of consumers themselves do generally believe that hospitality is just way behind the curve. If you look at other industries, even if you look at things like I think it's Mac, you can even go online now and you can almost try on lipstick, for example, on their website from a virtual point of view. Imagine what that would do for the industry if you could quite easily see around your venue on the website, and what that would do and how the different interactions. There's been there's a couple other stats. I've got plenty of stats. If anyone wants to see more stats, I've got loads. So there's stats saying, for 18 to 34-year-olds, having a 3D tour even on your website can increase more likely people to go up about 130%. But if you need any further stats, obviously, I'm more than happy to share.
Basically.
Man with the maths. Yes, so I think there's a lot there, and we know there's a lot more we can do with tech. Sorry, I have to go to the next slide, Faye.
Yeah.
There's a lot more we know that we can do with tech. And in particular, this is a model that we always work towards, and it's always a goal to make sure that you have something that is on each of these touch points. There are other aspects, but I'd say this is something that needs to be looked at in the run up to Christmas. So we look at it as a circle, because it's a complete customer journey from a tech point of view. So you've got your website, making sure you've got the clear design, the visuals, the packages, and your bottle ones. It's really clear what you're offering for Christmas, how much you're charging for them. You have sort of a bronze, silver, gold sort of package. What does that look like? Making it really, really crystal clear for the customer. And therefore they can actually then just go and book, and it's an instant book, and it's optimized from table joins to making sure your capacities are all in there, your offerings, so that it's really clear that this is for the Christmas booking. It's not just a normal lunch or dinner or experience. It's making sure that the customer understands that. And then you've got the pre-arrival aspects. As we know, no-shows are a part of the industry that is absolutely shame that everyone has to deal with them. So it's about how do we minimize that as much as we can. So that's making sure you've got actionable SMSs, that's reminders, that's obviously there is the element of deposits and authentications, etc. But reminder SMSs and email reminders, SMSs in particular is on the up, and engagement with those is on the up. Just from how many times do you check your phone in a given day versus your personal emails? That the engagement is a hell of a lot there for SMSs, and I've got a couple of examples coming up on some really good ones. Then on arrival, making sure that you're actually gathering as much data about them at arrival and when they're in the venue as possible. It's something that's often forgotten about. So if you've got a booking platform that you can use in live service, making sure you're checking them in, you're marking your no-shows, you're adding the walk-ins, making sure that you're getting customers to sign up to Wi-Fi. And then even if you're able to offer something off the back of it, so if it's wireless social, maybe working with Hedgehog, for example, how can you do that to really incentivize gathering as much data as possible? And that will be really key into looking into something that Faye's going to touch on a little bit later. Using order and pay. Now, so obviously this will depend on the type of business that you run, but there's order and pays that can work for paying at tables, running totals, keeping tabs, getting basket data, etc. And obviously all this feeding into a CRM. There's the other options that pay at table. So I know like Big Mama Group, for example, do pay at table, but not order and pay, to just the speed up service. Then it's using feedback. So it's as mentioned before, we've seen how important social media is. We've seen how important having things like TripAdvisor, people are still using it. So having a platform that you can look at all that together, and being able to really pull some really great information in the run up to Christmas around what are the people saying, what are your customers saying, how can you continue to improve that going into December. All this then needs to feed into your CRM, so the likes of Airship, obviously. You can then feed in all this information against the customer, understanding who are your platinum, who are your gold, who are your silver, who are your bronze, who are your lapsed customers. And then obviously you can then create sales strategies and marketing strategies around that. And you can tie in loyalty to that too, looking at everything from gift cards and gift experiences through Toggle, or any other sort of gift experience platforms out there, or any sort of apps from your Magic Stamps to things like that. Then from that, you also use all that information to be able to drive repeat visits and create personalized offers for January in particular, and obviously get them back onto your website to go through that whole process again. So that's how we think that's going to be really important in terms of Christmas and actually going forward into the next year, into the new year. So I put in here a couple of examples based on some of the more popular bookings platforms, just as a one or two things that you can maybe look at doing, which are some quicker wins for you. If you're using OpenTable, look into being able to use OpenTable experiences, look into the idea of doing that payment and authorization at point of booking, where you can for your Christmas ones for certain group sizes and certain days. Being able to set pre-orders within Red's Diary, you can increase spend per head through that if they're paying up front, as we all know. Even other aspects and other modules, such as the event manager within Red's Diary, will really help from an operational point of view, being able to really lay out if you've got a big Christmas function, a big corporate function, how does that look? And it can be really clear and really concise and bespoke based on the event and operate, and the ops team will love it. From Collins, making sure email templates are done. So making sure you've got your T's and C's are really clear, not too long, not too over the top, but also not too short. Make sure they're crystal clear. So it's getting that balance. Making sure that you've got some upsells ready to go from within the templates. Also, something I see, it's happening a lot. I've seen it a lot with a lot of clients I'm working with at the moment, but also just across the industry with clients I'm not working with, is actually closing booking types off that are not available during the Christmas period. Is something that I see quite often, that people I can book for something that I know isn't probably going to be available in December, because I know that you're probably going to want to maybe do a Christmas booking and have the Christmas packages, etc., rather than your standard lunch. So making sure they're blocked off, but also on the flip side, making sure, I'm recently working with a client. Something I literally identified yesterday was the fact that you can still be booking things like Christmas. I can book a Christmas dinner tomorrow, and customers will find a way to do that if they can. And then they'll come in expecting a Christmas dinner on one of the hottest days of the year.
Really good point. And I think as well, to just add to that with the booking types, especially where things are set up with pricing, like if there's a package or pre-order attached to that, and that's not going to be running during that period, people are thinking, maybe my brunch is going to cost this much in December, because you haven't updated it yet, and that then causes a bit of a communication issue, trying to get in touch with the customer to let them know actually it's not £30, it's £40.
Yeah, exactly. And as we say, we want to remove as many booking barriers and as many booking difficulties and back and forth with the customer where possible. So making sure that's really up to date. And if they're already searching for things like Christmas, we just got to make sure that you're capitalizing on that. Similarly, sort of with if you're using any of Zonal's products, so if you're using their event model, their event platform, then obviously making sure you've got your occasions set up to be able to you can take obviously your you can take deposits, and obviously pre-auth, etc. can be taken. So making sure they're all done in the right way. If you've got the ability to use iOrder and all their other tools, obviously now's a really good time to make sure that you're capitalizing on that for your occasions. And then within 7 Rooms, making sure that I know they're doing a lot of integrations at the moment. So making sure you're getting on, you're working with them to make sure that you're capitalizing on the types of integrations that they have available. They're constantly updating those, so it's worth checking in. And also they've got an incredible segmentation of the customer profiling. So making sure you've got the integrations will be key to that, but making sure you've got all the labels and all the tags, etc., all set up as well will be vital. Cool. Next slide, Faye. So as I mentioned before, got a couple of examples. So this over the past, over the sort of, I think this was last Christmas, for outbound, so making sure you've got clear call to action. So again, this is a great example of why it's super clear as to what you're getting and how much you're getting, and it's really easy to then know how to book and see a menu. And then here are a couple of examples from different bookings platforms where it's really good pre-arrival reminders. So on the far left is the 7 rooms reminder from the team Big Mama Group. So Gloria, so they've been able to customize it, add in emojis and so on and so forth, and their own message. And in the middle again, we've got another example, which is through, I believe, it was Bella Italia. So a great example of some wording there. And then on the right, you've got Collins's SMS reminders, allowing you to obviously say yes, no, or make any changes necessary. I won't go into this into too much detail, but the idea here is at Bums on Seats, as mentioned, we do, as part of the identify piece of work, we do look at conducting these strategic sales audit, and as mentioned, one of them is looking at these systems and understanding what the opportunities are. And we do look at all these things that we've just spoken about, and a couple of examples here is looking at just what the actual things are covered from optimization to actually how much money can then therefore be generated based off our findings. But I wanted to include that here. And a couple other examples here around an example here of around what happens when we increase their conversion rate, we increase spend per head. That's from looking at various different platforms, and if this is something that, whether it's with Bums on Seats or whether it's something you guys take away off the back of this and run with, there's opportunity by making sure as much as you can possibly do is instant booking, as much as you can do to increase spend per head, getting as much data in as possible. There is opportunity here to grow your pre-bid value and your pre-bid sales massively, and then follow that through into the new year. And this is an example of how we were able to increase spend per head to up to 17 and increase the conversion rate up to 70 over the course of 12 months, and that actually really managed to raise their revenue. So that's not to say that anyone on this call can do the same for their group.
Cool, thank you, Ed. That was all really, really good. Lots of stats. I don't have many stats, guys. Sorry to disappoint you. Cool, so I'm going to now take you through where Ed's given a really good sort of general overview of kind of different platforms and tech. I'm going to just pull out a few specifics and kind of talk a bit more about, from a Christmas campaign perspective, sort of what you can be doing, what you should be doing now, and maybe how to approach it. So just to kickstart, before we go straight into the nitty-gritty of CRM, I think it's really important to sort of map out and look at, so something like this is a really useful visual that we use a lot, and we use it with different clients. So you're pulling in all your different kind of booking channels or booking places that you can kind of promote and sort of message to customers, where they're going to find you and find out about your venue. So kind of listing all of those out. Then also looking at your different types of customers. Now, obviously, this is going to be different for your brand, for your venue, but I think it's a really important piece of work to do to make sure you understand, well, who are my customers. You might have a very wide customer base, which means you've got to really think about that when you consider your messaging. And then we layer onto that, what are our kind of reasons to visit. So obviously for the Christmas period, you could kind of break that down and be quite specific in terms of different Christmas parties, whether it's corporate or personal. And let's put the World Cup in here as well now, especially if you're a sporting venue. And then look at what your offers are, so your core offers. So how are all of these things sort of linking up, and how is that then going to form your strategy, your sales and marketing strategy, also your kind of product strategy around putting together your packages and your pricing. So I would suggest it's a really useful exercise to do for your for your business, whether that's kind of on an annual basis or you do it kind of by campaign, because of course once you've done this, you can be really specific and targeted in how you're going to approach it. And then of course what your CRM is going to do is then sort out all the data to make sure you're kind of doing your targeting and your personalization of the messaging. So starting with just having a little look at customer journey. So I'm going to kind of pull out a few specific digital sort of things that we would look at for customer journey now in terms of Christmas. So it seems like a really obvious one, as I mentioned it before, but just making sure you've got a Christmas page on your website ASAP. Are you, you might not be ready to do that. You might be waiting for things like menus to be approved and signed off, costings to be done, photography to be done. There's a whole, obviously it's a huge amount of work that goes into getting a page up on a website. But perhaps that's all right. Maybe you can get something up and you're using some older imagery or sample menus from last year, as long as you're making that really clear to the customer. I think that's absolutely all right, because what you want is to have, a digital footprint of Christmas up there on your site, and also giving people the ability to make an inquiry now, so that booking widget is set up, and that's really important. Again, there might be a huge amount of work going into setting all up the different booking types and your packages and your pre-orders, and it is a big piece of work. If that is taking time, just making sure you've got one booking type set up that allows somebody to inquire, so that the inquiries can come through to your reservations or your sales team. I think that's really important to get that up as soon as you can. Once you've got that page, making sure it's featured really clearly in your nav bar at the top of the website, and then throughout, as people are kind of going through the website and the customer journey, you've got clear CTAs throughout, different kind of boxes, different lovely bits of imagery that talks about Christmas that people will click through to. In terms of social media, I think, we'll talk about this in a second, I think you can kind of look at approaching this in two ways. You might not be a business that use paid advertising. If you are, I think, now is the time to kickstart that strategy, because obviously you can be very targeted with the ads and the messages that you send out. So, and I look at kind of the paid as more of a kind of sales side of how you kind of generate, people visiting your website and inquiries. So start that strategy now, and then consider probably from round about September your kind of consumer launch, if you like, and that's sort of your launch for your organic content from September onwards. In terms of your ads, looking at a remarketing ad based on people that have browsed Christmas content on your website. I think that'd be a really useful thing to set up now, or maybe they've interacted with a Christmas piece of content in the past. So maybe you had a video that you posted last year. You can do all that within kind of Facebook advertiser. So you're sort of putting these ads out, but you're kind of making it really targeted in terms of who you're getting it to. Making sure that when you set up these ads, you've got a really clear link to get back to that website with the opportunity to book or make an inquiry for Christmas. And then throughout all your different kind of platforms and kind of customer touch points that Christmas is updated. So it seems like a really obvious thing, but like if you've got a link tree for your Instagram, make sure you've got Christmas and there is an option so people can go to it straight away. In terms of email, again, I would suggest looking to approach this in two parts. Obviously, it does depend on the size of your team and your venue and what you're offering, and of course resource. But I think if you can, splitting it in two, so starting with a corporate launch, and by corporate I don't just mean corporate businesses, but sort of big parties, big big bookings, and then your consumer launch. And the reason for that is people that want to secure really great dates are looking for venues now, and have been actually for the last few months. Your average person just thinking about going out in December probably won't start planning that till a little bit later, especially because we've kind of got school holidays now. So I think it's really important that you kind of phase it, and this kind of corporate Christmas launch. So you've got menus, you can do some targeted emails. If you have a sales team, this is when you can be looking at sort of setting up showcases, and sort of any advertising that I spoke about from social. But kickstarting that, I mean, we've said June because this is something we've been doing with our clients for a few months, but starting that as soon as you can, before you kind of get onto your consumer launch from September. So how does that look in terms of the data, and how can you really optimize it? I think it's important to say at this point that within your system, how is your data to set up? Have you got all your different data sources coming in? So if you're collecting Wi-Fi data, is that pulling through? If you've got your booking system, is that pulling through? And within that, are you really looking at the sort of data fields that you can get? So from your booking system, looking at things like, if someone's a corporate booker or a sporting booker, doesn't really make sense, sports group booker, any kind of history that you've got there, if you can distinguish between someone that's maybe made an inquiry but not confirmed, then that's a great list to kind of look at and go, oh, we can see you've inquired in the past but you've not actually kind of made a booking. something like the segmentation form, which is obviously part of what Airship offers, that gives you the ability to drill down, ask a whole load of more kind of detailed questions to the customer, so you're pulling in more information that you've got sort of within your CRM. So I think that phase one is about doing a series of targeted emails to the above groups, and I think especially if you've got sales teams, it's about the design of those emails. They're not like your brand emails that go out. You can design those so that they look like a really kind of nice personal message that's coming from maybe a member of your sales team. Maybe you're including a really compelling offer to get them to book as well. So planning out kind of a couple of different lists to just start to do that targeted messaging to people that are going to be booking their larger groups, I think is really important. And then phase two, your general database comms, starting from probably about September. You're still looking at how you would segment in terms of, location, if that's relevant for you, and maybe loyalty, past visit history, kind of looking at those top segments that obviously Airship have set up as well in terms of within the CRM. And then when we look at something like automations, so I think automation is just generally speaking, even not talking about Christmas, I think it's really interesting. Everyone talks about them, we know we need to be doing them. We know that the reason for it, that they often can be the things that are hard to kind of get fully set up, to get your kind of offers confirmed, to get the customer journey mapped out in terms of redeeming any offers. But I think the point to make here is that the more of these that you can set up and have just running in the background, sending targeted messages out to different sort of segments of customers, that's going to just keep driving those inquiries. Obviously if you're linking it through to sort of making a booking, it's just going to keep driving those. So it's going to mean less of those kind of one-off bulk emails that you might have to be sending because you've been, because you need to drive sales in the short term. I think that's a really, a really valid point. And also certainly from a marketeer's perspective, and you're being told from, operators or whoever it is, we need to get another email out, we need to get another email out. And you were thinking, well, actually, I don't want my unsubscribes to go down. This is a really good way to be approaching it, is making sure you've got more automation set up in the background. So some examples of that, obviously we know we've got welcome emails. If you've got something like that set up already, how is that messaging updated to reflect Christmas? Maybe you get something in there that talks about Christmas, to sort of drive them through to make that booking. Birthday incentives, so again, probably a popular one that a lot of people have set up. So maybe going out 14 days or so before someone's birthday, you might have an incentive there for a free Prosecco. What happens during Christmas? Often people will just say we've got to shut them off, not doing any comps during December. But maybe there's another way you can approach that. Again, maybe you can tailor those Christmas birthdays through to something specific that they get. Again, trying to kind of encourage that booking or that inquiry. Your sort of lapsed customers, so we're talking about customers that you can see that may have not visited in a certain period of time. How can you really put something compelling in front of them as an incentive, and again make it specific to Christmas? So you could be having a lapsed customer journey set up, that's ongoing, but again change up that content sort of for now going into December. And tailor your messaging. So again, depending on use of CRM, but with something like Airship, obviously we've got the pop segments, proof of presence, and kind of split into different bands. So, for each one of those, how again do you tailor that message? Because it's a different type of customer, right? They may not have been to your venue in X amount of time, or you might have someone that's really loyal, loves the brand, knows you really well. How can you kind of tailor that message and that, incentive or kind of offer, as part of your Christmas offering? You might have a range of different packages. You might have something that's like a brunch that's geared towards the daytime. You might have a late night package as an example. So just think about how you're kind of tweaking that message. So what now? What's the next step? I'll let Ed take over.
Yeah, so I think this, obviously I mentioned at the beginning, I was going to give a bit of a couple of actions that you can kind of take away. So it's making sure the key bits here are bolting things on, making sure that you've got it, you have the layered pricing, the packages, you've got the visuals, making sure you're doing what you can to reduce no-shows, from the SMSs and email reminders to where feasible and where possible, do try and do the authentications if it works for a venue and for certain days and group sizes, and obviously maximizing on capacities. There are obviously lots of other things to consider with your booking systems, for example, but I'd say they're some of the key bits in there.
Oops, sorry, on mute. Okay, and then just finally, guys, this is just a snapshot for looking ahead into next year and just things that you can really be thinking about now or even towards the back end of the year. So from getting a really good January bounce back offer in place so that you can promote that throughout December when we know it's the busiest time with people coming through your venues. And what does that bounce back offer look like? Make sure there's a data sign up process for it, and that the data is clearly marked. Make sure it's live across all your data points, so order and pay, any Wi-Fi journeys, make sure you're mentioning it. I popped this in here, but I think consider a campaign or promotion that extends beyond just January, especially if you're putting a lot into it. It takes momentum and time. The first few weeks of January are always a bit slow anyway, so just make it last a bit longer. The birthday automations we spoke about, again, update that offer. Maybe take the time then to make sure you fully set up your customer journeys and your CRM with exciting reasons to rebook. And then really you should be thinking about planning out your major campaigns and promotions for at least Q1 into a nice kind of comms calendar, and then mapping out your automations alongside those if you can. And then really sort of looking at early bird booking incentives again for Christmas for larger parties, and using your data, targeted email send outs, passed to your sales team as warm leads. So what I mean by that is you send out the email from your CRM, maybe you look at clicks, people that have opened it, and you can maybe pass that data on to sales teams to do a call follow-up if that's possible. And then finally looking at using your data lists from December, so December bookers, to do targeted social ads going into the new year. So remember, you can always kind of pull off different data to feed into Facebook Business Manager for any ad campaigns you might be running. So that's just a real quick fire summary of going into next year, because conscious about time. But yeah, there we go, guys.
Cool. I think as a bit of a summary of sort of what we've said is, I think Faye, I know we've used this phrase quite often when it comes to tech, and tech, whilst we know that tech is incredibly important and it needs to be at the forefront, we know, looking at these stats, it needs to be at the forefront, and consumers believe and know that we're behind the curve compared to other industries. But tech should never replace. It should always enhance customer journeys and enhance customer experience. That is something that is really, really key. And, it's things like, for example, I know Feedback did a report based on Christmas last year. Feedback, I love the fact I keep mentioning all their stats and their reports. I'm not just saying that because I know Dan's on this call. But I know that for a lot of the complaints that venues faced back in December in the Christmas period, was the most common one was speed of service, about 21%. So I know that they, how can technology help that? So is it a pay at table? Is it an order and pay, for example? So it should always enhance and never replace. But yeah, and I think as well, what I wanted to say is, from a priority point of view, I think obviously Faye's highlighted it a couple of times around from a website point of view, making sure that that's all set up and really clear, and where possible to set up those pages. But also from a bookings point of view, I would look at starting there to make sure that is all fully up to scratch. And that's that's kind of what I mean. Is there any final thoughts? So you agree, Faye? Any final thoughts from you?
No, I agree with everything you said. It's all very good. But yeah, definitely those are your top priorities there, getting that web page up, and sorting out your booking widget, and then everything with the data and the CRM obviously comes from that.
Cool.
Oh, fab. Thank you, Faye and Ed. That was really good. Does anyone have any questions or anything? Any comments? Anyone got any questions?
Can't even see if there's a... No, everyone's gone silent.
Fab. Okay, no, thank you very much, Ed and Faye. That was really good. Obviously, if anyone's got any questions, give us a shout afterwards. But yeah, let's smash Christmas.
Feel free to contact if you need any more stats, or if you think of that Christmas joke, more than welcome to hear. So
Just to see if Ed's heard it before, because he gets so many Christmas puns.
No, I'm still waiting for Bryony to come up with a Christmas joke I've not heard of before. So
Maybe my mission for the rest of the day. I'm going to try and think of it.
And I think this is going to be recorded, isn't it, Lorna? So
Yeah.
anyone needs to,
Yeah, definitely. Fab. Okay, have a lovely day, guys, and thank you again, Ed and Faye.
Thanks, guys.
See you
Bye,
later.
Matt.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
bye.